John, I thought of you when I heard President Obama tell NBC that the reason he hasn't been able to force Congress to implement all that he has promised the voters is because, and I'm quoting, our founders designed a system that makes it more difficult to bring about change that I would like sometimes. So now it's not just blame Bush, it's blame our Constitution, it's blame the founding fathers.
It's amazing how many people were responsible for the failures of the Obama administration, except the president himself. But I tell you, I think when the mask came off when he made that statement is that it reflects what a lot of people on the left wing of his party believe are the inadequacies of the Constitution. You know, when you know what the right answer is to everything, as he does, it's really inconvenient to have to deal with the people who are just not as smart as you. And in fact, that's what the constitutional restraints he's complaining about were designed precisely to do, to make sure that nobody with a temporary popular majority could run off and make dramatic changes that, on reflection, the people themselves might decide they don't want. So Obama's frustration, I think, is something the founding fathers would have been very happy about.
But what the president said really goes to what you have said since he took office, and that is that he is a post-American president.
Yeah, he really sees the Constitution, and I think much of the way that the economy and political institutions of America have developed as impediments to what he wants to do. He wants to move toward a European-style social democracy, and to do that, you need the sort of power that you get in parliamentary systems when you get huge majorities. And it's true in domestic policy, it's true in foreign policy, and yet the people keep inconveniently electing representatives and senators who don't want to go along with that vision of a social democracy. And I think this really underlines how important the election this November is going to be. You know, if we have a situation where President Obama never has to face the voters again, I think a lot of the areas where he's restrained himself, we're going to see real activity because he doesn't have to worry at that point forward. And given the enormous powers of the presidency, I think he will swing for the bleachers.
And one of those areas has got to be his anti-gun agenda.
I think that's right. And again, I'd say that both in domestic terms, but especially in international terms. You know, it's been kind of surprising to me that that the president has not pressed his obvious multilateralist preferences as much as he might have in the first term. And I think, you know, looking back on it, to say to inquire why he didn't go as far as he might have, is that he realized that he would be open to a lot of criticism, whether it's on gun control or a whole range of other issues that, you know, normally we consider issues to be debated in our domestic politics. But I think you'd have to conclude that he believes if he could get a second term, that's when the floodgates would open. Mm-hmm. And many of the agenda items, like international gun control, that he's pushed only very quietly and not as far as he might have, that at that point there'd just be no limit to how far he would try to go.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, of course, next week we've got another round of meetings at the UN. This is a president who has signed off on the negotiations for the arms trade treaty. I've got to ask you, though, John, when you look at what we are in, which is an election year, what do you think the odds are actually that they'll get a treaty signed, that it'll be done as they have wanted to do in 2012?
Well, I don't think they'll get nearly what they would want, and it really poses a tactical question for the people who have been pushing the treaty from other countries. You know, do they really want to wrap it up now and package their gains and hope they can get it through? Or do they think maybe they'd be better off by waiting until November and seeing what happens in our election? I think it's a tough calculation for them, and so that's why I think those who are opposed to this treaty at all really should press very hard now. It's not a time to let your guard down, because it's precisely the moments when people are not paying attention that this gun control agenda moves forward.
But do you think that very simple reason, the fact that we've got an election and Obama may or may not be back next year, that's all the more reason why they'd want to push it through?
No, I think it's the fear that the Senate, for example, may be worse next time. It's the fear that that Obama won't be able to push. Obviously, if he's not in office, that it leaves them very uncertain. And my guess is that they would rather roll the dice and hope that he can get reelected. And given recent polls, it shows that his favorability ratings are high. But I think it's anybody's guess. That's why I think we've just got to pay very close attention to it and listen to what the proponents of the arms trade treaty are thinking.
When you look at things right now, I mean, are we talking about a president who, if he gets reelected, would rely more on executive orders and just go around Congress?
Well, I think that's another, in terms of the domestic agenda, I think that's exactly right. He's already showed that he's willing to press on the executive order front and through regulations in ways that other presidents have not even thought about. And again, once he's free of the ever having to face the voters again, even if he's rebuffed by the courts, who might rule his executive orders exceeded his authority, he doesn't pay any price for that. So from his perspective, he has everything to gain by going that route.
Yeah, and that's why he likes the UN.
No, and I think this is why the international arena is going to be very troubling, and on a whole range of issues, gun control, the environment, family issues, where it's a lot more congenial to Obama's way of thinking than our domestic politics, even if he were to win re-election, and where his legacy of locking in a lot of these agreements in international terms is something I think would be very high on his priority list.
And I don't think a lot of Americans are really aware of what's at stake if we get another Obama in there for another 4 years.
Well, I think it's the responsibility of everybody who's thinking about the potential for that and the risks we face and the loss of our freedoms and constitutionally protected rights to make the point to their fellow citizens that this election really is the most important in our lifetimes. People are always saying, "Oh, this election is the most important one." This time, it's really true.
Mm-hmm. You'll be speaking at CPAC this weekend. Your message, what's it going to be?
Well, I'm going to talk about what a Reaganite foreign policy would look like in 2012 and try and talk about some of these issues that we've been discussing today and others on nuclear proliferation to show where Obama has failed and to show why the Republican candidate, whoever that turns out to be, really needs to pursue a Reaganite foreign policy. It's the right policy, and I think it would be good politics, too.
All righty. Well, and as you said, it'll be interesting to see. It should be a big crowd because, as you said, this is the year. It's so important for everybody. Even if you're not a gun owner, I know we've been talking about gun rights, but it really is about our freedoms, about our sovereignty, and where we're going to be headed.
No, absolutely. All these constitutional rights are important, and when you let one slip away, you're just putting the others at risk.